What is good, everybody, man? Hoping everyone had a good, safe weekend, especially for all the listeners that are down in Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, man. I had to drive through the storm to get up to Campbell on Friday. So I saw, kind of firsthand just how bad it was, even when it was just a category 1 tropical storm when I was driving through it, man. So I hope everyone who listens to the show down in Florida was safe, man. My mom is from Tampa. I got a lot of family in Tampa and down there in Florida. So hopefully everyone who support down there was safe and everything like that. Especially if you had to evacuate by chance or anything like that. So I wanted to start the show with something about that. But if I sound a little tired, man, just got back probably about 2 hours ago from Campbell. Had to travel about 11 hours for that game, man. Left Thursday night, stayed just outside of Atlanta, and then made the rest of the trip on Friday and drove down today from Campbell, man. And we're going to talk about that trip a little bit. I had a absolute blast, man. Shout out to the SID and Coach Mentor for talking with me after the game, Miles Rouser and everyone up there who made that experience extremely worthwhile. I will say, listen, Buse Creek is just as small of a city as you can imagine, but man, the facilities that Campbell has are top notch for being a school of that size. I was talking to the SID. I didn't know this. They only have an undergrad enrollment of about 3,000, and the school is extremely small, but man, the field was amazing, man. All turf, and I thought the attendance was pretty good, given that the night before a tropical storm went right through there, and it was pretty cold in the morning. So I had an absolute blast, man, at that game. But listen, Week 5 FCS recap. Y'all know how this works. We're going to go through players of the game. We're going to talk a little bit about some FCS games this weekend, recap our 2 games of the week, which was Campbell, North Carolina Central, Elon, Richmond. And also, we're going to do our HBCU recap with 4 of the games that I previewed what was it, Thursday or Wednesday when I did the FCS preview. Also, call line 701-779-9585, taking y'all's comments and calls all night, man. Got a little bit of time, so however late y'all want to go, we can keep this thing going. But hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. I have full highlights up of the Campbell, North Carolina Central game filmed by your boy. Also, photo gallery dropping tomorrow on the website. I got a bunch of awesome photos from the game. Upgraded a little bit of camera for this game, so really took a step forward in quality, man. So I'm hoping you guys are enjoying that. But let's get into this Week 5 recap. First, I want to get y'all's thoughts, man. Comment your most impressive team or just your main takeaway from this weekend's F FCS game. And KJ, completely understand. Appreciate you tuning in and hitting the like button before you go hang out with your guy. I definitely appreciate that. But man, comment everything. And let me get to this, because this game's not on here, but we need to talk about this. Tennessee State losing to Lane College, a D2 team, and I know it was some classic. I don't remember what the classic was called off the top of my head, but that was embarrassing. And I know I understand that Draylon Ellis was out. I'll understand they're battling injuries, but I don't see a lot of teams who lose a handful of players and drop down in that quality of performance. This is a team that one competed with Eastern Washington, was a top 15 team at the time, a team that competed well for 3 quarters against Jackson State, and you lose a handful of pieces here or there, and then you go out and you get handled by a Division 2 school. It shows that right now I don't think Tennessee State has the depth, and I think they're right now that team is 1 deep. And when you look at some of the top teams in the FCS, what separates really and truly the top like 15, 25 teams from the rest of the FCS is depth. If North Dakota State loses a handful of people, they're not losing to Lane College. If Jackson State loses a handful of people, they're not losing to Lane College. If maybe pick your team, Incarnate Word, Southeastern Louisiana, if any of those teams, if they lose a handful of players, including their starting quarterback, they're not losing to Lane College. Montana State has been playing without their starting quarterback and their top 4 running backs, and just put a beat down on UC Davis and has won multiple ranked matchups. So I'm not using Draylon Ellis or whoever being out as an excuse. If you want to be a top FCS program and you want to compete for the OVC, which UT Martin looks legit this year. I just I don't know where you go from here, and I don't know what the outlook or the mindset in the locker room is from a loss like that, and it's inexcusable. It's it's something that just can't happen, and it is different. I know everyone's going to say, "Well, Valley lost to Delta State." I think Delta State is a one, a different animal, and two, Tennessee State should be in a lot better place than Mississippi Valley State right now in terms of just resources, talent, and everything like that. I don't think that's a comparable loss. A lot of people expected Valley to lose to Delta State. I don't think there was a single person in that stadium, including the people traveling from Lane College, who really thought that game was going to turn out like it did. Eddie George, from what I was told, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what he does now. He already didn't have some of the big booster support behind the scenes, but now I don't know where that program goes. And you're going into conference play without your starting quarterback potentially, without multiple key positions, coming off of a Division two loss. You're sitting at 0-4. I don't know I really don't know where Tennessee State goes from here, man. TJ, I'm glad you brought that up because I didn't put that on the slides, but that's something that just can't happen. And I don't know. I don't want to say Eddie can't coach. I saw some people saying Eddie should be fired. It's year two. I understand. I just don't know who does Tennessee State hire that that is better right now than him? I don't know the answer to that question. So I don't think that he gets fired, but I do think they're going to have to take a long, hard look in the makeup of that program and where they're going to go in 2022 moving forward because they have some really, really tough games coming up. I mean, even Southeast Missouri State looks legit in the OVC too. So I don't think Tennessee State has lived up to any of the hype that they were supposed to so far. Newsflash of the week: Tennessee State's a pretender. Take away, I'm glad my Bulldogs won. One, two, three. Andrew ain't it. Blue, you got to start having faith in my Bama State Hornets. Hey, Chris, I definitely do. Alabama State looks solid. There's old school Baptist pump money into that school. I like it. Yeah, the John Merritt Classic was the game that Tennessee lost. I agreed. Zero depth at all. Paris. Can anyone tell me who was first in the SWAC West? PV is first. D in the SWAC West. And we're going to talk about that PV game because I love it. Coach Eddie George has to build, and all FCS HBC football teams have to get their strength and conditioning under control. I agree, T. I completely agree. You have to have at least a two deep, man. At least a two deep. It, in my opinion, it just. I was really disappointed in Tennessee State. Eddie is capable, but on the clock. I agree, KJ. That's a fair criticism. I think the seat's getting warm. You have the hot seat, and then you have the turning the heat on a coach, and I think that's kind of where Eddie is. If things don't get turned around quickly, first FAMU, then Tennessee State and GSU. Now they're going to say JSU should be scared of Campbell. SU is going to win their next game by 40. South Carolina State winning the MEAC. We overreact too much week to week. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit later in the show because I'll address it now real quick before we get into everything. I think that's just one Sonic Boom. That's one of a fan of reaction. Fans are always going to go with what's the latest, and that's fine. That's what you're supposed to do as fans. I think some people though, Sonic Boom, early season is a real learning experience for a lot of teams because we have preseason expectations that were based on previous years and based on player projections, team projections, things like that. But I think the first 3 to 6 weeks of the season is always a learning experience from the FBS to the FCS down to D2, D3, wherever you're covering, because you get a little bit more information on each team. If I gave you all the answers, it's like studying for a test. If I gave you all the answers for the test, of course you're going to say you were right on everything because you had all the answers. But if how would you do on the test if I only gave you 5% of the info that's going to be on the test, or 10% or 20%? So each week you get more. And I think people are really figuring out what these teams are going to be. But I do agree that there is a little bit of overreaction week to week, and it's just because the most recent thing sticks out in people's minds, and that just comes with the territory of sports. Sonic Boom. Eddie George has to do better with depth of recruiting a backup QB. If the Panthers can keep head coach Matt Rule, who is currently 10-26, surely these HB. That's a good point, T. I like that. Agree, but it's true that we need to clean things up when it comes to fundamentals. Y'all give Eddie time. That was supposed to be their bounce back to get some confidence game. I agree. Um, if I'm that game might not be on here, but I'll go ahead and talk about it. I think that was a big win for A&T, and not big in the sense that it wasn't a game that they were not supposed to win. It's a big win because one, it was a conference game, and two, after the just horrible opening, or the difficult opening games that they had. When you look at North Dakota State, you look at I forgot the FBS team they had to go Duke, and then you also had to go play Central at that time, who was really clicking and motivated to beat you. They had a really tough opening schedule, and you go and beat South Carolina State. You win your conference opener. That's important because right now, NCAT sitting on top of the Big South. I think the team still has some questions at quarterback they got to work through, but man, that run game is legit for A&T. Tootin is a whole problem at running back, and as long as their quarterback doesn't lose them the game, I think they have a chance to be in just about every game moving forward on their schedule. The one question I do have, though, is can the front seven just keep hanging on like they are? And also, the transfer they got, the cornerback looked really, really good this week, and I believe he had multiple picks. So I think A&T was supposed to win that game. They looked pretty impressive doing it. I think getting an opening conference win was extremely important for Sam Washington after how tough the season was starting. They jumped ship after a bad loss this early into Eddie's career. I say it's dumb if they went scoreless in 4 games, but yeah, they just have to build. Once again, I'll take how Coach Prime is building our program. If Eddie George is fired, then Odom's. I agree. I definitely agree. Um, I think it's got to be a little bit of both. I don't think you can. I don't think you can put it on one or the other. I think both have to be in conjunction to win, and so I think it's a little bit of both, and also just not being able to overcome injuries. And every day we JSU just keep getting new big time recruits, and where's everyone else? Someone asked a question on NCC stream: How in the world did Campbell get the number 2 class? Why were there no HBCUs closer to JSU in rankings? I don't know, but listen, Campbell landed 2 more 3 stars today too. So Campbell and Jackson State are setting an outrageous pace right now in FCS recruiting. Campbell and Jackson State, 2 teams that most of the big dogs in FCS in terms of the top 25 we're never really thinking of recently, are setting the pace right now. So I'm extremely excited to see what Campbell and Jackson State do over the next few years with all these great recruiting classes, because it's going to be Campbell Jackson State 1 and 2 for the foreseeable future, the way they're both recruiting on the recruiting trail. So I'm excited to see what it looks like. JSU success is going to get several people fired. They built their team to beat JSU. Campbell definitely solidified themselves as the clear team to beat. I agree. Listen, Campbell's the team to beat in the Big South. I think A&T's a close second though, Chris. Craig Bowl won like 5 games from 07 to 09 on his way out at NDSU. Yeah, there's some plenty of examples of that. Tennessee State. Do you agree Texas A&M needs a new offensive coordinator? Texas A&M needs a whole revamp, man. I just think Jimbo Fisher, apparently a great recruiter, but not a very great coach, man. And I picked Mississippi State. I told everyone Mississippi State was going to win that game. I just don't think A&M is very good because they do not have a quarterback, and quarterback is the most important position, man. Howard didn't lose as bad as they thought they would. We're going to cover that game in just a second. Bama State looks solid. I think we made too much of the Texas Southern win over SU. No SWAC team looked particularly good. Maybe FAMU PB is a little better than Florida Memorial. Oh, man, he will be back at Tennessee State in a couple of weeks. I'm dead, man. Imagine Coach Dooley leaving Prairie View and they still win the SWAC West without him. That might happen. We're going to talk. That's one of the games. That's one of the games we're going to talk about because PV has been one of the more interesting teams to watch thus far. Mike Minter played for the Carolina Panthers and was the safety. All things equal, JSU homecoming and A&T. I'm rooting for Campbell. That's hey, I like they because they play A&T and Jackson State back to back, both for homecoming. It's gonna be extremely interesting to look at that. Campbell's in Bues Creek, North Carolina. Ronaldo, I love when Texas A&M loses. Imagine having $500 million facilities, boosters, NIL deals, number 1 recruiting class in the nation, and Jimbo Fisher's on the hot seat. I will say that. Blasphemy, Blue Bloods. Certain people about to start calling themselves a powerhouse again. Mike Minter is going to get the Carolina and Virginia market. I listen. He's doing his thing up there. UAPB was missing their 3 starting linebackers. Not saying they would win, but that explains why it was so easy. Aaron, I just broke it all down. It was a very, very disappointing loss right now. I don't know. It should be happening now. It should have happened 2 weeks ago. It's coming soon. Don't worry. It's coming soon. Harson's gonna be on the next flight out, and we'll see who comes in on the returning flight. But real quick, man, offensive players of the week. Um, Lindsey Scott Jr. easily player of the week. Incarnate Word QB. Lindsey Scott Jr. has completely inserted himself back into the Walter Payton Award discussion. Right there with Shador, right there with Tim DeMorit. Lindsey Scott went berserk this weekend, man. 396 total yards, 4 passing touchdowns, 3 rushing touchdowns, and completed over 70% of his passes this weekend. I mean, 7 total touchdowns this weekend for Lindsey Scott Jr., almost 400 total yards. He went berserk. This is one of the more impressive performances of the year, man. He was on fire this weekend. Now, Sean Chambers a close second. 227 passing yards, 203 rushing yards, man, over 420 yards of total offense, 5 total touchdowns. And Sean Chambers this weekend against UC Davis averaged 11.3 yards per carry. Sean Chambers is a backup quarterback at Montana State, just to kind of remind you guys. Tommy Millott, the quarterback who led them to the national title game against NDSU last year, got hurt. Sean Chambers is the backup right now. 400 plus yards, 5 total touchdowns this weekend against the solid UC Davis team. Big time for Sean Chambers. Now, Geno Hess and Jalen Thomas were my 2 non-quarterback picks. I gave it to Geno Hess, 276, 4 touchdowns, 11 and a half yards per carry, because he set a school record for rushing yards for a career, man. It was a historic weekend for Geno Hess, so I gave him the nod, and also he did it over a longer period, man. But Jalen Thompson, 5 carries for 104 yards and 3 touchdowns. He touched the ball 5 times and had 3 touchdowns on those 5 touches. Listen, Jalen Thomas deserved an honorable mention this week, because that's some explosiveness, and we're going to talk a little bit about why his performance was what was so big this past weekend. Now, for defensive players of the week, man, Zeke Vandenberg, Illinois State linebacker, 14 total tackles, 3.5 for loss, and a sack. Illinois State, man, he is the best player on that defense by far right now. All over the field for the Redbirds. Torrey Hargrove, Abilene Christian linebacker, was my next player of the week. 7 total tackles, 3 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, and a crucial forced fumble for Abilene Christian, and a big win this weekend. And Nathan East, Sanford linebacker, 10 total tackles, a tackle for loss, a sack, and 2 crucial forced fumbles, and a huge win for Sanford this weekend over Furman. These guys were my defensive players of the week. And man, let's breaking down some of these games. She said Shador Sanders to the Carolina Panthers. I like it. Definitely like it. But at Montana State, UC Davis, this was a big win for Montana State, man, and it was an impressive one. They've been battling injuries all across the board, and this was a big weekend. I've just talked about Sean Chambers. He was the X factor. Also, Miles Hastings did not look great at quarterback for UC Davis. Their running back Alonzo Gilliam is legit, man. 127 and a touchdown. But when you got Sean Chambers doing what he does, it's just hard to stop. And I think as long this team's going to go as far as Sean Chambers can take them. And the interesting question is, if Tommy Millott comes back healthy, who do you roll with at QB1? Do you stick with the hot hand as Sean Chambers, which I do think that's what you should do, or do you go back to Tommy Millott, who just led you to a national championship last year throughout the playoffs? I think Sean Chambers right now is doing enough to keep that starting quarterback job for Montana State, man. But a big win, 41-12 for them. Sam Houston State gets a big win, man. It's been a hard year for Sam Houston. Not a great year. They don't have much to play for. They can't win the conference, can't be ranked, can't go to the playoffs. I'm my bad. I went backwards on but But man, Sam Houston 17-16, and it just came down to who made the last mistake. And that's really what it came down to. Who made that last mistake? And Sam Houston nor Stephen F. Austin played a very good game. Both teams it didn't look overly impressive. I'm gonna be completely honest with you, and it just neither offense was able to really convert, even though they moved the ball fairly well. And Stephen F. Austin controlled the ball for 35 minutes and just was not able to do much with it. Man, they just kept kicking field goals, and field goals aren't going to win against Sam Houston in a game like this. And Sam Houston State's in transition, Mr. Campbell. So they're one of those teams like Jacksonville State that has 85 players on the roster right now, but they're not they're not moving to FBS until next year. So this is their transitional year. But man, Trey Self's had a really tough year. I'm going to be honest. I had higher expectations for him. 17 for 34, 239, a touchdown, a pick, and Sam Houston's got to find a quarterback. That's the main reason I don't think they've competed. Shoemaker was 14 for 40 this weekend for less than 200 yards and two picks. If it wasn't for Sam Houston just making timely plays, this could have been a blowout for Stephen F. Austin. But kicking field goals, just like we saw with Jackson State, Tennessee State, kicking field goals keeps teams in the game, and Stephen F. Austin just could not put the ball in the end zone. And one touchdown could have won this game for Stephen F. Austin. But Sam Houston gets the 1 point win in the Battle of Piney Woods. Now Chattanooga, comeback kids, man. This game looked like it was damn near over. I'm not gonna lie. I was feeling sick. I picked Chattanooga 13-3 in the second half. It was a 13-0 halftime deficit, and Chattanooga absolutely stormed back. And this was an impressive comeback win. They put up almost 400 yards of total offense, and they just got it done in the second half. And this is a stat that was disgusting to me. And this is how you lose a game. ETSU, all they were up by 13 points. You have to be able to keep the other team off the field. They went 1 for 14 on third downs. 1 for 14 on third down gets you beat 10 times out of 10. You have to be more efficient on third downs if you're ETSU. But UTC, it's the running game, man. Over 118 yards rushing. They weren't super efficient with the run, but they stuck to it. And this is what I talk about with teams all the time. If you're a run first team, even if you're only averaging about 3-4 yards per carry, do not abandon the run, man. Ford, their top running back, had 100 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 28 carries, averaging about 3.5 yards per carry. And that was enough to win them the game. You have to stick to the run if that's what you do. But man, the Chattanooga defense, man, Jay Pearson went insane. He was one of my honorable mentions, man. 10 tackles, 3 sacks this weekend, a forced fumble. Jay Pearson was all over the field. Todd Beck as well at the linebacker spot was all over the field. This Chattanooga defense is going to be the key to them making a big run into the playoffs. And then on top of that, man, Holy Cross up not upsetting Harvard, but getting back at Harvard. Man, Harvard beat them last year in a really really tough loss for Holy Cross. But man, Matthew Solka does it again. 300 yards passing, 2 passing touchdowns, while also running for 63 yards and another touchdown. Matthew Solka is right there in the Walter Payton Award race. And this came down to they were really able to slow down the Harvard rushing game. Harvard loves to run the football with Aiden Borgett. They held him to under 80 yards rushing. Only he got 2 touchdowns, but they came in goal line situations. And Jalen Coker is making his impact and making a debate to be one of the best wide receivers in the country at the FCS level. 10 catches, 166 yards, and a touchdown. That's the same wide receiver that caught the Hail Mary against Buffalo and the Hail Mary against Sacred Heart last year. He's the number one target, and he deserves a lot of respect. And they also did a great job of blocking the front seven for Harvard. They got some of the best pass rushers in the country at Harvard. They can get after the quarterback, and Holy Cross really neutralized that. And Solka's mobility was a big part of that. And I agree. Listen, Holy Cross is legit. The Patriot League is going to probably have 2 teams in the playoffs, and it's really going to be interesting to see where Fordham is ranked this weekend or tomorrow, because if Fordham is ranked, the Patriot League is going to have 2 teams in the top 25 for the first time, and I don't know when's the last time that really and truly happened. But real quickly before we get to the games of the week, North Dakota State 27-14 over Youngstown. And I just want to say, before we get to anything about North Dakota State, if Jaleel McLaughlin had any sort of help for Youngstown State would be a playoff team. Jaleel McLaughlin is legit at the running back spot. 150 this weekend, 8.8 yards per carry against a really tough front seven for North Dakota State. But they just don't have any quarterback play, man. They just don't have any quarterback play. The quarterbacks between Mitch Davidson and Demetric Crenshaw went 11 for 20 combined, 121, was sacked 3 times and threw an interception. The quarterback play for Youngstown is just too inconsistent. But I will say, Hunter Lipke is the real deal. Hunter Lipke, 2 rushing touchdowns, while on top of that, going berserk in the receiving game too, was their second leading wide receiver again. I don't understand how the fullback game works anymore for North Dakota State, but I just want to say North Dakota State ran a play in the red zone, guys. They put 4 fullbacks in the game at one time. They put 4 fullbacks in the game at a single in a single moment, and that is the most North Dakota State thing I think I have ever seen. And I don't understand how in the hell that is still a thing in college football, but 4 fullbacks, and I don't even know teams right now that have more than 4 fullbacks on the roster. So I just want to say that I just can't believe it. But Daryl, I appreciate the donation, man. I just put the link in the chat right here, and it's also in the bio of the video too, if that doesn't work. But man, North Dakota State does their thing. I mean, they didn't look overly impressive this weekend, but they just keep winning. And like Aaron said, the Fargo Express, they're gonna walk this thing. They're gonna walk this thing to Frisco. North Dakota, though, big upset here. Missouri State loses to North Dakota 48-31 in a shocking upset. I didn't see this coming, especially with how good Jason Shelley played. Jason Shelley, 271, 3 passing touchdowns this weekend. But then they neutralized the run game. Jacardia Wright did solid, man, averaged 8 yards per carry, but they didn't give him the ball enough. And then Tommy Schuster had a pretty good game, 267, 2 touchdowns for North Dakota. And the defense for Missouri State is going to be their Achilles heel. The offense is going to put up 30 plus points a game in most games. The defense can't stop a nosebleed sometimes. And when you look at the Tyler Hoosman averaging 9 yards per carry, Isaiah Smith averaging 9 yards per carry, Red Wilson averaging 4 yards per carry, Gavin Zebarth averaging 6 yards per carry. If you can't stop the run, you just don't have a chance in the Missouri Valley. And right now, when you look at Petrino, the offense it is legit. But if you can't stop anyone and they're just going to run it down your throat, you have no shot to beat the South Dakota States of the world, the North Dakotas of the world, the North Dakota States of the world. It's not going to bode well for you. So, man, Missouri State was a very big disappointment for me. And when y'all see my top 25 at the end of the show, I've really reflected that by dropping them a significant amount. And I just think Petrino's really got to look and see what he needs to do to rebuild this defense. Now, Sanford looks like a legit contender right now in the SoCon. Michael Ayers is legit, 228, 2 touchdowns this weekend, but he was sacked 5 times. The offensive line was an issue. Jace Wilson for Furman making his first career start. I want y'all to listen to me. First career start for Jace Wilson for Furman. He threw the ball 59 times in his first ever start, 329 yards and 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. It was a hell of a performance for Jace Wilson. The problem is Furman likes to run the football, and Sanford held them to under 3.5 yards per carry. None of their running backs hit above 55 yards. And then my honorable mention player of the week, Jalen Thomas, touched the ball 5 times and had 3 touchdowns on the ground. Jalen Thomas averaged 20.8 yards per carry this weekend, and that's how you get beat. They also, Chandler Smith at the wide receiver spot, 11 catches for Sanford. But, man, Kendall Dean and Ryan Miller are a problem for Furman. But, man, the defense for Sanford was able to get into the backfield, force 2 big crucial turnovers, and that was really the difference in the game. And so Sanford, didn't expect much for him this season. But, man, I was extremely impressed with them. And, Daryl, appreciate you joining the membership, man. Definitely, absolutely appreciate you. But then finally, before we get to our games of the week, UCA, pulling off a giant upset over Austin P this weekend. Mike DeLelio did not look himself this weekend for some reason. He threw a pick, zero passing touchdowns, was sacked 3 times, extremely inefficient, and they neutralized his run game, held him to negative 14 yards rushing. While on the other hand, Will McIlvain finally put it together, 4 passing touchdowns for over 260 through the air, and they finally found some wide receiving help. Trustin Oliver, Darius Hill out of the backfield really showed up. Christian Richmond and Miles Kit Denton showed up for Central Arkansas this season, and the Austin P defense just wasn't able to hang with them. And on top of that, Demetrius Charles for Central Arkansas, 12 tackles, 2 for loss, and a sack. Then you also had Logan Jessup on the defensive line, 7 tackles, 3 for loss, half a sack. Also had a big fumble recovery. They were able to neutralize Austin P because they were able to get Mike DeLelio uncomfortable in the pocket, did not let him use his legs, and they just didn't know what hit him, man. And this was a big win for UCA. This was a must win for Nathan Brown and that program. They lost a lot of talent this past season. Tyler Hudson transferring to Louisville. They lose their number one receiver Winningham to the NFL draft. They lose their quarterback to graduation. Overall, man, UCA just looked like the better team, man. They really did this weekend in Austin P. This was a big loss for Scotty Walden. This was a conference loss when it really and truly looked like Austin P was primed to run away with the ASUN and run away with the auto bid for the WAC and ASUN. They do get help that Stephen F. Austin lost this weekend, but man, Austin P really and truly has some issues that were exposed this weekend. But man, HBCU recap. We had Sacred Heart Norfolk, which I told y'all that I saw that coming from a mile away. PV Grambling, FAMU Valley, Yale Howard. I predicted all these right on the show this past week, but let's start with Norfolk. I mean, I don't know what to tell Dawson Odoms. You got to find a quarterback for one. You got to find a quarterback for one. 9 for 19, 118, and 2 picks for the quarterbacks at Norfolk State. That they did okay guarding Marquez McCray, but they were not able to run the football. No big rushers. JJ Davis was held to 57 total yards, and they allowed 132 yards rushing to Malik Grant, a touchdown, 5.5 yards per carry. And this is a guy that just 2 weeks ago, Morgan State shut this team completely down. And Norfolk didn't have any answer. Tyler Long looks legit on the defense, 13 total tackles for them, but the offensive line doesn't look great. The offense looks inconsistent, and they just don't have the it factor right now at on any level of their team. They're inefficient on third down. They were 0 for 4 on fourth down attempts. They failed to convert on a crucial red zone trip. And right now, Norfolk State does not look like they're going to be able to compete in the MEAC. I'm just going to be honest with you guys. Right now, this team looks like it was completely overrated, and I would put Norfolk behind Morgan, Norfolk behind NCCU, South Carolina State, and we'll see. Howard played Yale really well this week, and we're about to talk about that one. But right now, you could argue that Norfolk's either in the fifth or sixth spot in the MEAC, and they did not look super impressive. Held to 0 second half points this weekend, and that's a telltale sign of no adjustments, man. The other team made their adjustments, and you weren't able to respond, and so Norfolk State drops 31-14 to Sacred Heart, and I don't know. I don't know where Odoms goes from here. Appreciate you, the HBCU Sports Wire, man. Go check them out, but appreciate you becoming a member. Man, Prairie View though. I told y'all it was coming. I had zero hope for Rambling or Grambling or Amblin now. I don't know how many letters were taken away, but this was a bad loss for them. 34-14 to PV after you just lost to Bethune, after you just got your doors blown off and lost your helmet stickers against Jackson State. It's where does Hugh Jackson go from here? Where do they go at this point in time? And hindsight's 2020, but looking back now, I think you see why it was so important to Hugh Jackson to take that chance and try to go hire Art Briles. And what I mean by that is it's easy to say, okay, well, John Simon, they brought him in after they had to fire Art Briles or let him go or whatever, or however that worked. But there was a reason he took that chance. And there was a reason that initially he was ready to face the backlash. And I just think it was because he saw how important it was to really have a strong offensive mind in the building, because this offense does not look good, and now they're turning the football over. I if you already are inefficient on offense, turning the football over is the easiest way to get things completely out of hand. They barely averaged 4 yards per carry. The passing game was better than PV's, but PV didn't have to pass the football. That's the worst part about this, is PV wasn't trying to do anything crazy. And I don't know how to feel about Grambling right now. I didn't think they were gonna be amazing, but I mean, PV had almost 40 minutes of possession time. You can't do anything on third down. It's just I don't know where to put Grambling. I'm gonna be completely honest with y'all. But looking at PV, they just have they never look this is the weirdest thing about PV, is PV has not looked elite in any game that they've won. But the thing you can't take away from them is, even when they might not be playing 100% or playing A plus football, they're winning. And good teams, even when they don't play well, find ways to win. And I think you're seeing, I mean, PV right now, well, I mean, if you're a PV fan, and I'm going to ask Bubba McDowell in the press conference, hopefully I'll be able to get off work in time, with my on three work to be there this week. I'm going to ask him, like, what would you grade your team? And I would guarantee he's saying that, man, we probably played a B minus game. When you really break down the film, they probably didn't play their best game at all, and they still won by 20 points. And that's something that good teams can do. And so I think you've got to give PV some credit. I know people are kind of picking apart the defense and the offense being one dimensional at times, but man, they're still winning. And that's something that a lot of teams, especially in that division, can't say unless you're Alcorn. So I don't know, but listen, Ahmad, the running back for PV, I love his game. Over 5.5 yards per carry, almost 100 yards and a touchdown this weekend. He's the guy. And at the wide receiver, I think they got some athletes at the wide receiver spot. It's just they don't throw the ball. But man, the defense is all over the field, and they force turnovers. Man, I believe Grambling had 3 fumbles and a pick that they threw this weekend. Every single game, like TJ said, he took the words right out of my mouth. Every single game, this PV defense looks more and more and more confident. And so by the end of the season, or whenever, I believe they play, let me pull up the schedule real quick because I want to get this right. By the time they play Alcorn, man, this team is going to be rolling. And they got Southern this weekend. Southern's coming into Prairie View Blackshear Field this weekend. If they beat Southern, which right now I think they're a better team than Southern, if they beat Southern, man, people got to be on notice. And every division win that they rack up puts a little bit more pressure on Alcorn too. And I get it. Bubba McDowell wasn't the sexiest hire this offseason. Everyone was looking at the celebrities. He was the least known name out of all the hires, maybe outside of Eddie Robinson Jr. this past offseason in the SWAC. But damn, man, he's out of all the new coaches in the SWAC, he's outperforming everybody. And he's out here really putting a good team together. And you can't say he's doing it all with Dooley's talent, because a lot of the talent that Dooley had left with him or graduated. So he's doing this with what's left over. And I get it. People are gonna say, oh man, they don't look as dominant as Jackson State, or they don't look this or that. PV looks legit, and right now they are neck and neck with Alcorn. And the reason I think that game could be a toss up is because this PV defense, if they load the box and make and try to make Alcorn State be one dimensional and throw the, it could cause problems for Alcorn. And I think PV has a great chance to pull off that Alcorn upset. And I think I would not be surprised if you're looking at a PV Jackson State rematch in the SWAC championship. Really and truly, I based on what I've seen thus far, I would not be surprised. But let's see. We'll see what happens moving forward. A big game with Southern this next week. But man, FAMU doing what they were supposed to do against Valley. Jamari Jones had a all right day. I mean, he was sacked 6 times, man. But Musa, 291, 2 passing touchdowns. They did all right. I mean, the thing that I was a little bit disappointed, I'm not gonna lie, was FAMU is not as efficient on offense as I thought they should have been. And I know it seems I'm kind of nitpicking, but man, you got to average more than 3 yards per carry against Valley, man. You got to run the football better, especially with how good McLeod and Jennings and all these guys are. On top of Musa going 26 of 45, I just thought they would be a little bit more efficient and really establish their game more. But listen, Xavier Smith, legit 13 catches, 128, 2 touchdowns. He's that guy, and I like what Cherie did as well through the air. But I thought I did want FAMU to look a little bit more impressive. Isaiah Land, 2 tackles for loss, a sack, had a forced fumble and a fumble recovery. Really, that's been his best performance this year. But it was a game that I think FAMU won. They were supposed to win, and I'm just going to leave it at that. I think, but they put up 400 yards of total offense on them, and man, we'll see what happens. But I'm not going to break down that game too much. Everyone knew what was going to happen. But Howard Yale is the final HBCU game. Here's what I'll say: if Howard can find a quarterback, man, this team could be pretty solid. It really could. It man, it kills me. It kills me how good this team possibly could be if they had a quarterback. Quentin Williams, 226, 2 interceptions. He went 23 for 42. He just was not efficient. Yale's quarterback wasn't either, but the problem is Yale ran the football straight down Howard's throat. 366 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns, and I want y'all to hear this stat as loud as clear because I thought it was a lie. Yale averaged 9.2 yards per carry as a team. As an entire team, they averaged 9.2 yards per carry against Howard's defense. They could not stop Yale running the football. 12 tackles for Hamilton Moore for Yale. Absolute impressive performance. But Casey Hawthorne and Antoine Murray did their thing, combined for 13 catches over 150 yards. They just don't. I just don't think Yale has. I mean, Howard has enough consistency at quarterback to compete. We'll see if they can find a way to replace Quentin Williams next year, but that team has a hard ceiling if they want to go any further with that quarterback play. Oh man, the 2 games of the week, obviously, man. Let me start with Elon, because I know the Campbell game is probably going to have the call lines buzzing. Oh, let me get to Mr. Ford real quick. Mr. Ford, you're live. Yep, loud and clear, man.
Championship program in football. Okay, she's a CPA, she's a lawyer, she has a PhD in business, but she don't know nothing about running no football program. And I done told y'all over and over, winning starts in the president's office, and then it goes to the AD, then to the football staff.
Oh, hang on 1 second, Mr. Ford. They can't. Okay, they can hear you now. My bad.
They can hear me now.
Yeah, they got you now.
Okay. Did you hear what I said about Dr. Glenda Glover?
I did, but the people in the chat didn't.
Okay,
so you can say that again.
Let me repeat again, guys. Dr. Glenda Glover is the president of Tennessee State University. As long as she's president, they will never be a championship program. Always remember, winning starts in the president's office. It goes to the athletic director's office and then to the coaching staff. Now, I know everybody's saying that Grambling looked terrible last night, but here's my take from it. I think we found a quarterback. This Julian Calvez, the kid from Orlando, that's our quarterback, and I love them 2 freshman running backs. Now, I don't know what's going on with this Maurice Washington. Is he still on the team? Is he still hurt? What's going on with him? Somebody please tell me. Okay. Bubba McDowell is giving Prairie View a championship format. For all of you who was worried about what Bubba knows, y'all got to remember, Bubba McDowell played for Buddy Ryan. Do y'all remember who Buddy Ryan is? Buddy Ryan redefined defense. Okay? he played for Buddy Ryan. He knows what to do. He's telling them, establish a strong running game, throw when you have to, play solid defense and solid special teams. Now, the worst thing about Grambling last night, and that's my school, is that our special teams was terrible last night. I don't know who's running the special teams at Grambling, but it was awful. Okay, let me go on. I'm expecting a sellout next week as Alabama State entertains Jackson State for their homecoming. I believe they can go between 33,000 to 35,000, and I do believe that Jackson State will blow them out. All right, another big game for me I'm going to be watching. Southern goes to Prairie View. Okay, that's going to be interesting because, see, it's a tournament now in the West. Okay, the tournament is between Southern, Prairie View, and Alcorn, and it's a tournament of elimination. Now, whoever wins this game between Southern and Prairie View will move on. The other team will be eliminated. Now, Blue, you know last week you were saying that don't nobody care about Georgia Tech and all that. Let me just say this to you. I watched Georgia Tech and Pitt yesterday. This guy, and I heard he's your homeboy. He's from Alabama. This Brent Key, he's the interim head coach. That guy is a championship coach in the making, man. Now, I don't know if I'm going to watch him. I'm going to watch him the rest of the season. Now, I don't know if Georgia Tech is going to make him the head coach because I'm hearing that they're really interested in this guy up there at Coastal Carolina. But this guy right here, Brent Key, this guy's good now. I watched him very closely last night. And let's see, I think that was about everything I had, Blue. Okay, well, Blue, y'all have a good night. Oh, somebody said, ask Mr. Ford about the MEAC teams. Oh, let me just tell you this, man. Y'all got to understand about Dawson Odoms. Dawson Odoms is a guy who's into the triple option. He's not about the spread offense. He's not about. See, he learned from them people down there at Georgia Southern. If you ever do his history, he spent a lot of time down at Georgia Southern. He likes a triple option offense, and that's been his problem. He doesn't have that triple option type quarterback that he needs, and that's why he's having problems up there. Now, here's the thing about Prairie View. About Norfolk State. Norfolk State should be a powerhouse in that MEAC. And let me tell you why. There are so many athletes in Virginia, especially in that Tidewater area. Y'all got to remember, out of the Tidewater area came Allen Iverson, Michael Vick. Do y'all remember Alonzo Mourning? Do you remember that linebacker for the Giants? What was his name? Lawrence Taylor. All of them people are out of the Tidewater area. There's enough athletes in Richmond, in the Tidewater area for Norfolk State to be dominant. They are underachieving. Okay. So I'm just going to end it right there, Blue, because I know you got a lot of calls. But did you want to ask me anything before I go?
Yeah, someone asked how you felt about Campbell's performance this weekend over Central.
Oh, that defense is dominant. I'm like y'all. Now, one thing you're not supposed to do in sports, and Blue, you know this. You're never supposed to look ahead. The most important team is the next team. Now, they got to put their attention on Alabama State. Do not look ahead. I've been in athletics long enough to know, don't do that. That's how you get your behind whooped. Okay? So right now the fans can do it. You and I can do it as prognosticators and all that. But Jackson State's team needs to have their attention on Alabama State.
I think they will. I mean, knowing how Prime is and that coaching staff, I don't think they're even started sweating Campbell right now as a team.
Right.
And Campbell's got two big conference games before Jackson State, so I don't even think Campbell's focused on Jackson State right now.
No, and let me tell you something. I was very impressed with that defense, and I met Mike Minter. See, I remember when Mike Minter was on the staff at Johnson C. Smith. He was a good man. Had a chance to talk to him. I think Mike is going to eventually leave Campbell. He's going to be on the staff of some Power 5 institution. But he's a good guy. He's a real good guy. He played for Tom Osborne. He was out there during the glory days at Nebraska. He's from there.
Yeah, I'm hoping he gets
Okay,
an
okay,
opportunity.
Blue. Y'all have a good night here.
Yep, you too.
Okay.
9868. You're live.
Yeah, what up?
What's good, man?
Hold on a second. I stopped that. All right. Are you surprised about the Central Campbell score?
Yes. Okay. I didn't predict the game because I don't like predicting games I cover because it made it really awkward. Won't say the school, but one of the first three games I covered and predicted it made it awkward because I went to that school to cover the game. But I stopped predicting it. I thought Campbell could win. Campbell was a 6 point favorite, but man, 48-18 was a beat down that I didn't see coming. And I knew it was going to be bad. I was on the sideline, and when they went 12 plays, 80 plus yards, and ran the ball right down Central's throat, I said, "Oh boy, it's going to be a day," because they did not have the size to hang with Campbell.
And yeah, I ain't gonna lie. I never seen most of those teams play, but I watched it. I woke up. I made sure I set my timer. I'm a night shift guy, so I woke up like I'm gonna wake up middle of the day, watch this game. Um, I wasn't expecting that. From what I heard, so I never seen Central play. I never seen Campbell. But I will say is the Central defensive line wasn't even touching Campbell. I mean, the size comparison alone, it like technique. Like they were just getting engulfed. Like they're making contact. It's pretty bad. You offensive line guy, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. And
I
that was
mean,
technique wise.
they were on point, and I've heard this a few times. I pulled the comment up where there are some Central fans out there who are saying that there was not a size difference; it was a tempo different. I disagree. Here's what I mean by it.
Mm.
There was a size difference, and the tempo exacerbated the problem where you
I
didn't
agree.
have the size to hang and they were running tempo. So once you get tired, that size issue becomes a glaring issue.
Worse.
And I was told by the associate head coach of Campbell that statistically they have the biggest weight, by weight and height, they have the biggest offensive line in FCS statistically.
And you know what? Usually, I'm not in favor of a big, heavy offensive line because usually they can't move at this level. Like, if you're talking about big offensive line, Alabama, Georgia, they can move at the FCS level. Usually, they can't move. Those guys are moving pretty good.
You know what's
and
scary? I was there, and there was a kid that walked out of the tunnel, and I was looking at him, and I asked the AD, I was like, "Who was that?" He was like, "That's a true freshman." That true freshman was 6'8", 340, and I said, "Jesus Christ!" I was like, "That's sitting on the bench," and he was like, "Oh yeah." He was like, "We've been recruiting."
hey, that's the funny thing. People like people come off the line moving. We're not talking about the 40. We're talking about 3-4 yards. We're talking about can you pull and can you get to that next level of your blocks and can you pass protect? That's really what we're talking about offensive line mobility. But like if you saw Cecil's defense on end, he looked like he was about 200 pounds, and that was rocks in his pocket and soaking wet.
I mean,
And
I think there was one guy that the D tackle, I don't remember his name, number 0 on Central. The D tackle was the only defensive lineman that even looked like he belonged on the field with them. I mean, it literally looked like you took, let's take it to you football. It looked like you took a 13-year-old offensive line and you put them in like 8-year-old Pee Wee football. It just was not fair.
that's exactly how it looked. Now, I'm going to be critical on Central. I didn't see enough. They didn't got enough blitzes for me. Like you won't get no pressure with your front four. That was not happening. I think they should have got some more pressures and blitzes. That's 48-18. I'll be real with you. That you at the game. It's actually probably was worse than that score. It's like he had 400 yards offense at halftime. So Campbell did.
I was sitting on the sideline and on the scoreboard when for the TV timeouts were they were updating the stats, and I was sitting there about 2 or 3 minutes before halftime, and I was like, "There's no way they had that many yards, right?" And he was like, "No, we update that live." And I was like, "Oh man." And here's what they did. I was going to break down the game in a second, but Campbell's defensive strategy was genius. And I say this is exactly why Central had no chance at beating Jackson State, because all Campbell did is say, we don't think you can run the football. We're going to play man to man. We're more athletic than you on the back end of our defense. We're playing man to man, single high safety. Our DNs are going to get up the field. We're going to rush the passer. But when you have nowhere to go, you're not using your legs. And so they made Davis Richard a pocket passer, and that's the easiest way for Central to get beat. If you take away Richard's legs, they have no shot. And they didn't have any athletes at wide receiver that were better than the corners and the safeties for Campbell. And that's why they started picking them off. They could not run the football efficiently, and Campbell took away the number one thing they had, which was Richard's mobility.
I agree with that analysis 1,000%. I mean, you look at the middle and go routes, the corners, the deepest backs are like when they strive with them. Unless you're a pinpoint accuracy quarterback, that's even then, that's still a hard throw. You know what I'm saying? So Central's quarterback is not that guy. Even, like Shadu would have a trouble making if she was on the side of a defensive back. That's just a hard throw. Tom Bader, that's what you want. You want him to be the difficult throw possible, aka the 50-50 ball. You know what I'm saying? Now that's when your receivers are athletes that comes into play. Like, okay, there's 50% chance that he's going to beat him on this 50-50 ball. You know what I mean?
And it doesn't help. I don't think people who haven't played football don't understand how demoralizing it is when they get a 12-yard, 80-something yard drive, and then your offense goes a quick 3 and out. Then you're back out there and they continue to run the ball down your throat. I don't think people really and truly understand the mental toll that takes on the defense is when you have a team. And like Mike Minter said, in the press conference, he said we were bigger than them. And we just said we're bigger and more physical than you, and we're going to run it down your throat. And I think the defense got a bit shell shocked. And when you're sitting there and it's 17-21 nothing, man, that's tough as a team, as a run first team like Central, to come back from that, especially on the road.
I agree. Hey, how you make them understand it? Pretty much like this. It is like you're getting somebody is taking your when you get paid, someone is taking a portion of your check before you even see it. That's what it feels like when someone goes a 12-yard, 80-yard drive and they come back, you're 3 and out. Like somebody
it's just like they just treated them like the schoolyard bully. They were just pushing them up against the fence, and you just can't do anything. You can't swing on them. You aren't big enough to do anything back. And I was impressed. And also, every time they stopped Campbell, Haj Malik would get out of the pocket and make some ridiculous play downfield with his legs or throw it up to the tight end, and he would catch it in triple coverage. It was just, even when they executed, that it didn't turn out in their favor. So it was just, I don't think Central's a bad team. And I think that's goes back to what I talked about earlier about people overreacting. Central's going to be fine. It was just Campbell played their best game. They were a bad matchup for Central, and things got out of hand. I still don't think Central is a bad team, and I know some people are swinging both ways, where they're giving Campbell too much credit and they're taking everything that Central went away from. And New Hampshire potentially could get top 25 votes again this week, and they beat that team by multiple touchdowns. This team is legit. It was a bad matchup, a tough road game, and it happens. Everyone gets their ass beat sometimes. Let's just put it simple.
Hey, I mean, if you ain't never lost a fight, you ain't been in a fight. So, you know what I'm saying? So, y'all need to shut up. But, it wasn't the guest game plan, and definitely was a bad matchup. Taking nothing away from Kevin's offensive line. You watch the game. Now, I'm a Jazz fan, all day, every day. I'm not necessarily worried about Campbell's defense. I think we're going to exploit a lot of those matchups. So we want to cover 1-0 Jack State. That's not going to be a problem for them. Offensively, the offensive line. That's what I'm kind of excited to see this matchup. I want to see what we deal with that offensive line, how we match up with that. Like they bigger than us. Jack State defensive line is, we have one true defensive tackle, maybe two. A lot of guys like around 280. A lot of big defense ends playing tackle. I'm kind of interested in that matchup. What do you? I mean, looking 2-3 games ahead. What do you think?
I think the question becomes is how does Niles Gaddy, Doyle, and them hold up? The question because I think Devontae Davis, True Thompson will be back. I think Jackson State has the size of defensive tackle. The question becomes how do the DNs hold up? And I think that's where Central got exposed. The defensive tackles for Central had the size, but I don't think the ends did, and it caused some holes off tackle and things like that that Campbell was able to exploit. I think Jackson State matches up with Campbell a lot better than Central did because you have a quarterback that can throw, and Richard when you don't, and also Jackson State has to match up at wide receiver where your wide receivers can handle man-on-man press. Central's couldn't. They did not know what to do when Campbell was up in their face. But if you go press Dallas Daniels, if you go press Malachi Wideman, if you press any of the other wide receivers in there, you better be ready to cover because if you miss an assignment, Jackson State's going for 6. And so I think the explosiveness of Jackson State's offense is going to be key where you saw this weekend, Central didn't produce any explosive plays really. They could not stretch the field vertically with their passing attack, and that's something that Jackson State can do extremely well.
I'm agreeing with that. Jackson got Jackson got the best receiving core in the FCS. I mean, that's just overkill. But I am the offensive line kind of did a play. I like I play defense end, so I kind of like looking at linemen sometimes too. And I agree that that Central defense end, he was about 200 pounds soaking wet. But off that subject, what do you say about that Harvard Yale game? What did you watch here?
The Howard Yale game I just broke down just a minute ago. I mean, I just think Howard's got to get a quarterback, and they also can't allow 9 yards per carry against a really, really good Ivy League opponent. But man, I appreciate you calling in, man. I'm gonna finish up recapping these games, but I definitely appreciate you calling in with these good questions.
All right, take it easy, bro.
Yep.
Hey, last question.
Calvin, just put your next question in the chat, man. My bad. I didn't mean to cut you off there. Just put your final question in the chat. Paris. So Campbell's 2 losses. One was to an FBS school, which I don't count. I don't hold any FCS school accountable for losing to an FBS school, really and truly, especially a team like Campbell. Their other loss was to a really good William and Mary team, and what happened was Campbell was playing well, and they turned the ball over, and then all hell broke loose, to say the least. So I just think Campbell cannot turn the football over, and when they do, they lost to a really good William and Mary team on the road. So that's how they beat Campbell. I mean, I don't think anyone's saying Campbell's unbeatable, and or at least I haven't heard that. So we'll see. I don't know if Davis is playing this week. Hopefully, that gets answered in the press conference tomorrow. That's the question. Yeah, Campbell was also coming off a bye week. Offensive line for Campbell, all of them are 320. Terry, I don't know if you're just trolling. It could just be trolling. No one's painting Campbell as unbeatable or questioning Jackson State's ability. And winning traditionally does not make any difference in this year. So I don't know what I gotta stop. I gotta start addressing all the comments. But yes, hashtag Tim DeMorat for Heisman. Ayo, hashtag Tim DeMorat for Heisman. I tweeted it out this weekend. But man, real quick, Elon Richmond, extremely competitive game, double overtime, and Elon, I think I'm not going to say lucky, but man, Richmond played a hell of a game and had a huge opportunity to win this game. And they put up over 500 yards of total offense and still didn't come away with the win, man. But man, Reese Udinski, 58 attempts this weekend, 383 and 2 touchdowns. Matthew McKay, efficient as well, 3 touchdowns, 322 yards. Dykes for Richmond had an amazing game, but it just came down to who made the plays in overtime, and it happened to be that Elon made the big play in overtime, and that's what separated this win. So, Elon gets a huge win. My rankings on the next slide. Elon jumped a big way because a win over Richmond was a giant step for this program in proving that and proving that they're a legit playoff contender. Man, what's good, Zoe? What's good, man? Let's see. Campbell got the number 1 FCS recruiting class, all the height. They should be ranked. They got to win another game for me. They were an honorable mention for me. I still want to see them beat a conference team right now. So I want to see. Man, so let's get to this Campbell game. I'm sure you watched the press conference. Miles Rouser is the 4-star safety. That was in the press conference. Miles Rouser is legit. He earned every single 4-star that he had on his ranking this weekend. 7 tackles, a pick, was all over the field. And as a true freshman, Miles Rouser played both safety spots, slot corner, and even played some time at the boundary corner. And I got to give Miles Rouser a lot of credit for a true freshman to be able to play so many positions on a defense and be the leader like Mike Minter talked about. I got to give him a lot of credit, man. Miles Rouser was stuck out when you watched the game. And I mean, he was everywhere, and that kid is going to be legit. And just a little tidbit of information, like behind the scenes, Miles came in first for the press conference, and Coach Minter came in after. And he said, man, I always knew one day Miles would be sitting next to me at one of these press conferences. He loves that kid, man. And he looked at him and said, at one of these next press conferences I sit with you at, it's going to be because you're an NFL draft pick. And he really and truly believes that Miles Rouser is going to the next level, and he has all the talent in the world to do that. Travis will be back for sure. I don't think anyone said that they weren't. I think when you're a top 10 team in the country, you're a challenge for everyone. I don't think that had to be said. Jesus Christ, man. Not pulling up those comments. Anyway, Miles Rouser supposed to go to Arkansas. He's absolutely legit. He's too good right now. Yeah, Miles Rouser was the 4-star that flipped from Arkansas to Campbell, and man, he's living up to all the hype. But man, Campbell 48-18. This game 34-6 at halftime. 34-6, man. This game, I just can't. I mean, Campbell had 33 first downs, 315 yards rushing, 6.3 yards per carry, 5 rushing touchdowns, and still threw for 250. I mean, they put up almost 600 yards of total offense, and as a team, averaged over almost 7 yards per play. This one, and this was the most telling stat too. And this speaks to being able to run the football and keeping your team in third and short, and 10 for 15 on third down. And that was really the I would say the nail in the coffin for Central. They could not get them off the field because Campbell was consistently in 3rd and 1s, 3rd and 2s, and you see on the highlights that I posted that they weren't all explosive plays. They were just able to grind it out, and then they would hit a big run, or Haj Malik would get out of the pocket and make a big play. It just came down to, I don't think Central had the depth, nor was expecting the physicality that Campbell brought to the game. And when you look at Bryant Barr, who has really been a breakout player for Campbell this year, he came into his senior year, had his first ever 100-yard game against the Citadel week 1, 135 this weekend, a touchdown. Naquari Rogers put up 78 in a touchdown. Haj Malik did his thing. Lamega McDowell had 2 rushing touchdowns this weekend. And the matchup nightmares, though, you got to give a lot of credit to Julian Hill. Julian Hill is a matchup nightmare for anyone who plays Campbell. Julian Hill's the tight end. He has the size to be an absolute load for people. 6'5", 250, can line up outside like a wide receiver, can be in the box and block. He's able to fit he's able to fit anything you need, and he's great at one-on-one coverage. Made a huge play against Central this weekend when Hodge Malik needed someone to go to. But you got to give a lot of credit, man, to the front seven too. Brevin Allen, CJ Tillman, Josh Johnson was able to play in the backfield against Central, really and truly forcing Richard to get out of the pocket, and they kept a spy on him, and he wasn't able to use his legs. Davius Richard only had 37 yards rushing, had a touchdown late in the game that he got on the QB sneak, but they held him to 3.5 yards per carry. And as a team, held Central under 100 yards rushing in this game. So it was just a great strategy. But like I said, I think this was a horrible, horrible matchup for Central. If you had to create a team that was just a bad matchup, it was this game, man. It was this game. This was just not a great matchup. Campbell came out, punched him in the mouth, and you got to give Campbell a lot of credit. And Mike Minter was extremely vocal about, listen, we knew we had the size advantage. And anyone, okay, so I know, listen, I love my guy Josh on Twitter, man, big Central fan, host of HBCU Nightly. He was adamant that there wasn't a size difference between the offensive line and defensive line. And my thing is, both head coaches spoke about the size difference before and after the game. Trey Oliver in the MEAC press conference this week said the issue I see is the offensive line is too damn big, and it was too damn big this weekend, and that's just how it is. So I think the size thing might be blown a little bit too much, but man, when you have size and you have to deal with tempo and all that momentum swings in the other direction on the road, it's just a recipe for disaster, man. But I don't think we should overreact to one way or the other. I still think Central is the favorite to win the MEAC. I think Campbell has been, throughout this season, they're the favorite to win the Big South. I'm sorry. I don't try it's because A&T does not have the quarterback right now to face this Campbell defense. Campbell is going to load the box, and they are going to make whoever plays quarterback for A&T throw the football, and they're going to have no shot against the secondary. I'm just based on what I've seen right now. So Campbell should win the Big South. Central still my favorite in the MEAC. We'll see how they match up against South Carolina State, but I think that's where we should leave it right now. We'll see. Campbell's got two big conference games before the Jackson State game. Jackson State has two big conference games. Central opens up conference play next week. They're getting ready to play South Carolina State in the next few weeks. We'll figure it out. And so I think you gotta tone back your like expectations. Like every game can't be like this is the team's ultimate comparison point. So just, man, each week, like I said earlier, it's like studying for a test. Each week you get 10-15% more info on a team, and you're going to be able to better place that team. This week we find out Campbell is pretty damn good, and we found out Central has some holes, and we'll see if anyone's able to expose those moving forward.
Pretty damn good.
Coach Green, you're live.
All right, what's up, man?
What's good, man?
Man, what's going on with Missouri State?
They ain't got a defense, and they ain't got an offensive line. And those are two things that if you don't have in the MVFC, you got an issue.
Because, man, they came out hot. And other than the Arkansas game, I thought they were going to keep winning for a while. But like
I don't know. You know how Petrino is. Petrino just cannot build a defense for some reason.
Yeah, score a lot of points, but don't worry about the defense. Yeah, and what you thought of the PV game?
I talked about it earlier. I get it. People are going to pick apart on the weaknesses of PV because there are some, because I said this earlier, they haven't looked 100% or played an A+ game yet this year. But the scary part is they haven't played an A game and they just keep winning. And they keep winning fairly impressively, and good teams find way find ways to escape with the W, even when they don't play well. So I think PV is a legit threat, right now I think they have a really really good chance to beat Southern next weekend, and I think they should be the favorite going into that game.
Yeah, they should be. They should be going to the Southern game. But like I was telling my boy Scotty, man, I was like, hey, the quarterback is not that bad. They only thing they do is he managed the game. That's what he does. And when he have to throw, he gonna throw. But if they can run the ball, they gonna run the ball. That's what I saw. What you think about that?
Yeah, the biggest thing, because at SWAC Media Day, Dooley said he doesn't want a game manager. He wants a guy to go win the game. Bubba McDowell's the complete opposite. I just need my quarterback not to lose the game, because we have a good enough team right now where, as long as he doesn't give the other team more possessions, doesn't ruin solid drives, we can escape with a field goal, possibly a touchdown in scoring positions, we win. I trust my defense enough. We have a great run game. We got athletes at wide receiver when we need to use them, and we might not be Jackson State beating everyone by 40, 50. But guess what? We might win by 10, 20 some weeks. And guess what? We're going to be in the same place they are, which is potentially the SWAC championship.
Yeah. And that's why I always say, I wanted to see what would have happened if Conley would have played the whole game against UIW. I just wanted to see what would happen if you'd have played the whole game instead of getting knocked out early in the first quarter.
That's a what if game. I don't think they win. It might have been a little bit closer, but I'm not faulting PV for losing that game. I mean, Incarnate Word at the end of the day is probably beating everyone else in the SWAC outside of maybe Jackson State, but they're beating every other SWAC team by double digits. And that's a fact.
Yeah. And PV defense kept it close for a while.
Yeah, especially early. That they had Incarnate Word on the ropes, and Lindsey Scott went out late in that game and things like that. So it could have been a little bit more out of hand if the starters played the whole game. But all that matters is they're winning, and if they beat Southern, it's going to put a lot of pressure on Alcorn, because I don't think people talk about this enough. The more division wins that they start racking up, Alcorn's going to start looking across the way and say, damn, if we don't start winning, we might not, even when we play them, it might not even be for the division. They could lock it up before we play them if we don't handle our business. So they're putting pressure on Alcorn to keep up, and they just keep slowly racking up SWAC wins.
Well, your boy Davis won a game, man.
Man,
what do you say?
Listen, it's so weird, because neither team looked great, but like we just talked about, you just keep winning, and Davis and Alabama State found a way to win, and you got to give Eddie Robinson credit, because with how bad A&M looks, that streak in the Magic City Classic could flip real fast.
Yeah. Now A&M, I think they found the running back that was better than the running back that hit the transfer portal.
Man, he looked good, didn't he? He looked legit.
And he's bigger.
Yeah, he's got a lot of size on him. I mean, he's a bowling ball. He's I don't know. I got to look at the stats. He might be bigger than Wilkerson.
He's 5'11". Yeah, he's 5'11".
Because he's just got some size on him, man, and he's hard to take down, and that's a good thing. I mean, the thing is, the worry with Quarles is anyone going to go out there and say, I'm the number one running back now? And I think he made a convincing statement that says, listen, we don't need another running back. You got me. And that's more than you can say about the quarterback performance, because they've been waiting 5 weeks for someone to win the quarterback battle, and they still don't have someone they feel comfortable with.
Yeah, it still don't. And that running game, I guess, Maynard found this formula. He said he's going with the big back, and the big back running the ball, and and the quarterback managed the game. And he won like that. And I don't know why Coral's in the portal, but it looked like it was a blessing in disguise.
Well, he only had 1 year left, so he's probably saying, let me save my eligibility, transfer before I lose it, because he played 4 games. So now that he transferred, he keeps his eligibility. He can transfer to what he feels like is a better opportunity, a better whatever, and he gets to play 1 more year, and maybe he earns a good opportunity moving forward. So I never fault anyone from transferring, but I'm not
No, I
surprised
mean,
that it happened when it did.
Yeah. So with who Alabama A&M got next?
I don't know off the top of my head. Let me look it up. Whoever it is, they got to win. They got to make up some.
Yeah,
They got to make up some ground.
Yeah, and then back to Alabama State.
They got Grambling.
None.
They got Grambling next week.
Is really. Oh, they got Grambling. Oh,
yeah.
Hey, Alabama State. That boy Dunn, small but explosive.
Yeah, they got some really good athletes over there. It's just I don't think the team overall gets a lot of respect, but we'll see how they look this weekend.
Most definitely. But I say this about Davis though. He's showing a lot of potential with each and every game. Do you feel that same way?
Yeah, I mean he's got to get comfortable, and then the injury I think set it back even more, where it even lowered his learning curve or whatever you want to put it as. So I think each week he's going to get better. The problem is he's starting to just pick up momentum, and they got Jackson State next week. And you saw what happened to the momentum that Valley was building at the quarterback spot. It could be worst case scenario next week if he doesn't play well.
It's going to be interesting to see what game plan they use defensively against Jackson State, though.
It doesn't matter. Just be honest, Coach. That team is so much more talented that they could come out and have an average scheme and they might squeak by. Listen, Jackson State's going to smoke them. I'm just going to be honest with you.
Who do you think got the best chance?
In the SWAC or on their schedule?
In the SWAC.
Alcorn, probably.
Alcorn. Okay.
But
that's all I got for you.
Hey, I appreciate you, Coach Green.
You're doing a good job.
Appreciate you.
All right.
But Zoe, I'm waiting on the email back from Alabama State, but I should be in Montgomery. This weekend. I'm gonna go 8-9-4-5 and then 6-2-2-5. 8-9-4-5. You're live.
What's going on, Blue? This Doc right here, man.
What's good, man?
Hey, I got a couple of takes for you. Let's see. SFA hasn't beaten Sam Houston in over a decade, and it's going to stay that way because that was the last battle of the Piney Woods game for the foreseeable future. Prairie View's defense looks pretty much legit from what I saw in person this past yesterday. Let's see what else. I feel like for Alabama State, I think Coach Robinson, they need to take the training wheels off of Demetrius Davis. And my last two takes is North Carolina Central is who we thought they were, and Grambling still ain't gonna get their G back on their helmet. Nah. But other than that, man, I feel like I said, the third take, I feel like Alabama State needs to take the training wheels off of Demetrius Davis because I feel like he's being hamstrung in that type of offense that they got right now. Because I feel like he could do more as far as with his playmaking ability. and I just feel like they just need to let him loose, and they could probably score more than what they can.
I think they're a little bit like I was talking about on the last call. I really do. I think they're worried about his injury and also him missing so much time. He lost a lot of crucial time building chemistry with the offense, building repertoire with the coaching staff, things like that. They're going to have to still ease them back into things. But this week, man, if you don't take the training wheels off, they have no shot against Jackson State. I don't think they have
Right.
much of a shot anyway. But if you play conservative against Jackson State, it's going to be bad. But he's young. He's got plenty of time. This is year one.
Right.
He's probably got 2 more years in the system. Man, we'll see. I think the better judge will be what does he look like next year and what does he look like at the end of the year. Because this weekend, I just urge people, like I said with the Jamari Jones at Valley, do not judge Demetrius Davis what happened based on what happens this weekend. You've got to judge him
Right.
based on what happens in the Magic City Classic. One of the games coming up, don't judge him based on what happens against the Jackson State defense. That's going to be light years better than any defense he sees the rest of the season.
And my other question for you is as far as what you see with Grambling, what is other than the quarterback play, what is the other biggest thing that they need that they need help on as far as a team?
I think it's just getting healthy, man. Because like every big offensive weapon that they were supposed to have just isn't playing. Like what has happened to Maurice Washington?
From what I heard, Intel, he's been out with a leg injury.
That's their best offensive weapon. Faison hasn't really played. I mean, you just go down the list, and then I also don't think the offensive line is as good as everyone thought it was going to be, and it puts a lot of pressure on the defense. The defense is playing well at times. It's just they're consistently on the field, and they wear down. I don't think they have the depth in year one of Hugh Jackson to carry a team, and I think Grambling's just got to get healthy, and I think this offseason they're going to have to take a long, hard look and bring it in a legit offensive coordinator because I don't think Simon at the end of the year is going to be able to keep that role right now, at least, unless something major changes moving forward.
Yeah, and I think also with Grambling, I think he, like I said, I said it before, he needs Coach Jackson needs like a couple of more recruiting classes to get that team back up to par. Because people, I think the fans expected for him to like bring in one recruiting class and try to, perform a miracle, in which and I know that's not, that can't happen unless, that can't happen. But they just need to bring in, they need to bring in like at least 2 more recruiting classes, and then they should be fine. And I get what you're saying; they should be fine. As far as the O-line and trying to get a new, if they need to get a new offensive coordinator, in which we can go right back to it. If our Browns would have stayed at Grambling, it might be a whole different situation with him being, calling the plays for the offense. But man, that's all I have to go. That's all I have to say about that. Good show though, bro.
Appreciate you, man.
Anytime.
6225, you're live.
Hey, what's up, bro?
What's good, man?
What's up, man? Hey, I'm hearing you talk about Campbell and how big they were and how it was a matchup nightmare for North Carolina Central. How do you feel that it will? How do you feel the matchup with Jackson State? Do you feel like that's a game we need to be worried about?
Listen, I've said this so many times. Any given weekend, anybody can be beat, especially if you don't come out here, you don't come out on the field and play your best game. I think there's this weird perception sometimes where I think people sometimes use the wrong terminology. I don't know if worry is the right word. You should always anticipate that your opponent can beat you, unless it's, let's
Yeah.
be honest, Valley stood no chance at beating them. And yet there might be another team on the schedule that shall not be named that I don't think has a chance at all. But Campbell's good enough where if Jackson State doesn't play their best game, they can beat them. Just like Tennessee State, even though they lost to a D2 team this past weekend, when Jackson State didn't play their best game, Tennessee State had a chance to win. And I think that's what it comes down to. If Campbell is well coached enough and Campbell has real athletes at key positions and experienced quarterback, if Jackson State doesn't come out and play 100%, it's going to be a game. And I think that's week in, week out what it is.
Okay. I appreciate it, bro.
Hey, appreciate you, man.
All right, man.
But yeah, I mean, listen, I do want to say, man, appreciate all the Campbell people I got to meet, man. It was a great trip. Hated driving through the hurricane, but man, it was well worth it. And make sure to check out the highlights and the post game press conference on the page right now, man. It was one of the last videos we posted, and also on top of that, um, photos dropping tomorrow on the website along with the top 25 article, man. But let's get to this top 25 real quick. We're going to wrap up the show with y'all's comments and questions and last second phone calls, but not a lot of changes to the top part. 1 through 9 stayed the same. North Dakota State, South Dakota State, Montana State, Sac State, Delaware, Jackson State, Weaver State, Holy Cross all held firm. Chattanooga, after their win over ETSU, jumps to 10. And it was mostly due to Missouri State falling out of the top 10 due to their loss. Mercer at 11, Incarnate Word at 12. Samford jumps all the way up to 13 over their win after their win over Furman, which they looked extremely impressive. UT Martin sticks at 14. Southeastern Louisiana at 15 after a big win this weekend over Murray State. Elon jumps to 16 after their win over Richmond. Southeast Missouri State moves up to 17. Southern Illinois at 18. William and Mary 19. North Dakota making one of the biggest jumps from unranked to 20th after their big win, a double-digit win over Missouri State. Fordham, a new team in the top 25, jumping to 21. They're sitting at 4-1. Had another impressive win this weekend. Tim DeMorat, hashtag Tim DeMorat for Heisman, but nah, he probably right now he is the consensus favorite for the Walter Payton Award. Rhode Island jumps back into the top 25 at 22. Richmond falling to 23 after the loss to Elon. I did not drop Richmond out of the top 25. They've had a solid resume, and it was a double overtime loss in which they played Elon extremely well. And I still think Richmond is a top 25 team. Missouri State falling all the way from 10 to 24. The reason Missouri State didn't drop all the way out, they still have a top 15 win over UT Martin. They still look great over Central Arkansas, and that's the reason they're over Austin Peay, who dropped to 25 after their loss. But the fact that Missouri State beat Central Arkansas and that's who Austin Peay lost to, I dropped Austin Peay to 25, Missouri State to 24. Some honorable mentions. Campbell is right outside. I need to see Campbell win another conference game, man. Their wins right now over the Citadel, NCCU. If they win out, in my opinion, they should be ranked somewhere between 20 and 25 going into that Jackson State game if they win their next two games. I just need to see Campbell win a few more games, man. And then Idaho is the next team out. Their only losses were to FBS schools. They've been really rolling here. I just want to see how they look moving forward in Big Sky play before I put them into the top 25. And so that's my top 25, man. Not a lot of changes at the top, a lot of shuffling between about 13 to 25. But man, the top 9, I think, are the top 9 teams that you're going to see moving forward. Holy Cross is making a real strong case to move up a little bit higher after their win over Harvard, but we'll see, man. They get a big matchup with Fordham later this year, and I'm extremely excited to see what's happening, man. Sean, you have no idea. So listen, just a little story time. Listen, I was safe, so it's cool to look back now that I was safe, but it was stupid, man. I got into South Carolina. And so I stayed outside of Atlanta, just outside of Atlanta on Thursday night to do the roundtable with Scotty. man, I left and I was like, I'm gonna beat this storm. I'm gonna just book it. We're not stopping. We're gonna drive through this thing, man. I'm gonna be able to beat it. Man, that hurricane, it was still a Cat 1, hit South Carolina. And I got a picture on my phone. I'll have to load it up and show it on the next live stream. I drove right through the eye of the storm on like complete accident. And there were like 3 or 4 times on the interstate where we had to stop because trees fell down across the interstate and the cops and like people had to get out and clear the trees out of the interstate, man. It was a wild experience to see, man. But that's why I was saying I really hope everyone down in Florida was safe because it was bad. It was bad up in South Carolina, but man, but yeah, everything was safe. Don't recommend it, but hey, we got there. Don't have any videos, man. Definitely focused on driving. Don't understand Elon, JSU, and Weber State rankings. T, do you think Weber should be higher or like do you just say that Jackson State and Weber should flip? And man, Elon's had an amazing year. I don't know what you don't understand about Elon's rankings. Hang on. Let me pull up their schedule. Elon's been extremely impressive, man. They're 3-1 right now, I think, and their only loss was in FBS school, and they've looked impressive in their win over Wofford. They beat William and Mary, and they beat Gardner Webb, beat Richmond, so 4-1. My bad. I mean, they've looked extremely impressive. So I don't know why you're not on the Elon bandwagon. If NCAT had a quarterback, do you think NCAT will win the Big South? Probably. I think that's the difference is I trust Haj Malik to make a play, and I don't trust either of the quarterbacks for NCAT to make a play when it really, really counts. Don't count out Sac State, Weaver, or Delaware yet, even though I agree with you. I think Delaware, Ron, is really the dark horse in the playoffs. If Nolan Henderson keeps playing like he's playing and that defense lives up to the hype, Delaware could be a bracket wrecker for people and really make another run into that Final Four. Most State will be. I don't know if most State's going to have the defense, Dave. To be honest, the most beautiful. Okay, I think Imperial. I think you're talking about Montana State. Montana has not played Eastern Washington, but yeah, Montana State at number 4. I agree. If I had to pick a team out of the top 5 to lose first, I think Montana State is probably the most vulnerable. The other 4 teams have not shown many have not shown many weaknesses. So if Campbell beats JSU, where you place them in Alcorn with those wins? In terms of like the top 25, Jay, I'm just comment. Yeah, I don't know if the top 25 is what you were talking about. Let's see. It's because Davidson plays in the Pioneer League. They got no scholarships, so folks don't place them highly. Yeah, Delaware is not. Let's see. I was impressed with Campbell's secondary. Who do you think has a better secondary? Jackson State has the deeper secondary. Roosevelt, that's not a question. Campbell has a lot of experience, I feel like. But I think overall talent-wise, you got to give it to Jackson State. Now, Miles Rouser is legit. I think Miles Rouser right now could play at Jackson State. I don't care what people say. Y'all can argue. You can argue with your friends. You can argue with the wall. Miles Rouser would start at safety for Jackson State. He's better than Shiloh, better than Greg Great. I think he's better than Cam. Miles Rouser would start at Jackson State at safety, and I'll argue that to the death. He is a better talent, especially as a true freshman. Miles Rouser would play at Jackson State. I agree, but it still matters. Yeah, injuries are the hardest thing to go on. Elon should be higher. Who would you where would you put him, T? Because I mean, you could probably argue it's just, man, Southeastern, they got 2 losses, but man, there were 2 FBS losses and they've looked impressive, including that win over Incarnate Word. I guess you can argue maybe UT Martin over Elon over them, but man, Sanford's are in their spot. Mercer, Chattanooga. I don't know how much higher you could have them, but I think top 15 you could maybe make an argument. Charleston Southern, Robert Morris are both excuse me, both winless. Campbell might jump. I agree. If Campbell wins the next 2, if they win the next 2, they should possibly be ranked. How is Weaver under JSU? I mean, Weber beat Utah State. I got you. But listen, if Weber goes into Big Sky play and pulls off a series of wins, they'll jump Jackson State. Just going to give you that. But I still have questions about Weber right now. Listen, I know they beat Utah State, but ask Sam Herder, ask anybody. FBS wins don't always dictate how teams play in FCS play. I still need to see Weber State and Big Sky play, and they do have that D2 win. And I mean, honestly, I think outside of that Utah State game, they haven't beat anyone that's super, super impressive right now. Alcorn's not getting the top 25. When we're healthy, Montana State will be a difficult out. Top 25. So if Campbell beats Jackson State, was your question. And guys, I'm not predicting this. I just want to make sure because people will try to take me out of context and be running around saying Blue predicted Campbell beating Jackson State. So if that happened, JM, I was at, it would depend on, what if Campbell was 4-2 coming in, Campbell would have a chance to potentially be top 20, as crazy as it sounds. But Jackson State, due to the schedule, that being their only ranked game, Jackson State would probably fall outside the top 20 if they lost to Campbell, JM, to be honest with you. I think JSU will exploit Campbell's young secondary. Campbell's O-line will be the best JSU sees all season. Yeah, that freshman is a pro. What is going on with Tennessee State? Did they lose some? Yeah, they lost their quarterback. They got some defensive injuries that 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 they're having to overcome. So yeah, injuries are playing a large part in what's happening with Tennessee State. You can argue with your friend. Oh man, almost said you can argue with your mom, with your mom, but I didn't want people to be sensitive about it. But which FCS schools are in danger of losing their coaches? So just in terms of what I've heard, Matt Entz is going to be mentioned with a lot of jobs. The North Dakota State head coach, especially with all these Midwest openings coming open. I've heard Mike Minter even mentioned for a job. We'll see if he gets that opportunity. Of course, Deion Sanders has been mentioned with every opening. But I think those three are probably the biggest choices, Michael, are Prom, Matt Entz, and Minter. Even though Minter, I guess, doesn't have the history behind it, but I think due to his recruiting success, he might be put on some on some radars, especially when you look at that Coastal Carolina job coming open potentially. The Grids have to play Sac State, but Montana State doesn't. UT Martin switches. Okay, that's fair enough, T. I don't have any problem with that. Weber State has to play the Cats, Grizz, and Sac State. Weber isn't going to climb any higher. Alcorn's not that good. Oh, Jesus. Bluebloods predicted JSU lost to Campbell. Spread the rumor. Harvard. I know Dartmouth is getting a lot of hype. I think Harvard is the best overall team in the Ivy League. I think when you look at the D line, the running game, some of the wide receivers, including like Kim Wimberly, and even the secondary, man, they might have the best corner in Alex Washington in the Ivy League too. I think Harvard is the team to beat in the Ivy League right now, and I think Harvard wins the Ivy League if I had to make a prediction right this second, Mr. G. Styles makes fight. Which style is best to win a JSU Campbell game? It's gonna. I don't think. Okay, so you got to let's just take what the information we have now. Jackson State has not seen an offensive line as big as Campbell, nor a quarterback as experienced as Haj Malik. So that's going to be an interesting matchup. But at the same time, you could flip it and say Campbell hasn't seen a quarterback like Shador, which they haven't and probably won't. They haven't seen a defensive line that's probably as talented as what they're going to see against Jackson State, and they also are not going to they're not going to deal with such a physical, athletic secondary that they're going to see against Jackson State either. I still think Jackson State on paper should win that game, Roosevelt, but they're going to have to play a good game. I don't think that's one of the games because there's some games on Jackson State's schedule I think they could sleepwalk through. You cannot sleepwalk against Campbell, and they're going to have to play a really, really good game to come out there with a win. Yeah, Campbell Center did play with a broken hand, by the way. The starting center, if you go back and look, had a club on his hand. It was because he had a broken hand. I agree. He hasn't had the best record, but nowadays with how important recruiting is, some coaches are going to get opportunities just because they can recruit, Calvin. Mentor would be great at Coastal Carolina. It said Alcorn was going to run through the SWAC last year too. I don't side of him. Who said Alcorn was running through the SWAC last year? I can't remember anybody who predicted Alcorn to win the West last year, unless I missed it. I might be, or unless you're talking about just like running the football. I think Campbell needs some winning seasons first before moving to FBS. Campbell hasn't seen a D line like JSU. If Hunter is healthy, JSU wins big. Thurman's going to have a field day. Wait till the weekend wait until the week before the JSU game to ask people. Man, okay, I'm just going to tell you, Lawrence, I'm going to be 100% honest. That week, that Campbell Jackson State game is going to be one of the longest weeks of my life. I'm just going I love it. I mean, I absolutely love it, but it is going to be the longest week of my life because every single show, regardless of what I'm talking about, regardless of what we're doing, it's gonna be like, hey, that offensive line, hey, Hodge Malik Williams, hey, Julian Hill, hey, Miles Rouser, hey, what is Travis Hunter back? Hey, is what about Malachi Wabin? Or hey, what is the Shador gonna do against this Campbell secondary? That game has so much anticipation, and it's crazy to think that HBCU game day was at Big South Media Day for A&T, and their Campbell stuff had more views and more clicks than like their articles on A&T because people were so excited just to hear what Campbell had to say because they were on the schedule in Jackson State. They were the only non-HBCU on the schedule. So it's going to be extremely interesting. I'm so excited for that game. I'm going to try my best to be there. I talked to the Campbell SID and he's going to hopefully try to help me get credentialed for that game so I can go to Jackson and cover it. If not, might just have to cover it remote, man. We know what's going on with the SID over at in Jackson, and it is what it is. But we're gonna see. We're gonna see what happens. I'm gonna try to be I'm gonna try my hardest to be in Jackson that weekend. He said, "All core people." Oh man, what 3 teams in the SWAC has the weakest schedule? Oh man, I don't know, Russell. I'll have to look. Listen, I'll do my research and I'll answer that on my FCS preview. Wednesday night? But I'll do my research. I don't know off the top of my head. Campbell will battle all 4 quarters. All 4 quarters. JSU never had anyone challenge them all 4 quarters. He said only all core folks said. That's fair enough. That's fair enough, Mr. Campbell. All Corn PV moved to November 4th, Friday night, ESPN Plus, and JSU Texas Southern November 5th. Oh, so Alcorn PV is playing on Friday now. That's gonna be interesting. That's gonna be. I might come out for that game. I'm not gonna lie. Now that's on Friday night, I might try to get to that game. They said starting the. Oh, that's right. They started. That's right. And then Central, handled them in the MEAC SWAC Challenge. That's why it's gonna be a good game. I agree with that, T. I definitely agree. I think neither team has seen someone that stylistically offers him the challenges that either one's going to offer. I agree, Blue. JSU can't have 3 turnovers and beat Campbell. Definitely agree with that. I think FAMU's underachieving this season. They're showing no fire with slow start. Sad thing is the SWAC is too poorly close to exploit. We're an 8 through 7-4 team. FAMU should win out. I agree. I don't see anyone right now on FAMU's schedule that should be able to beat them. Better get your 5-hour energy ready. I I definitely will. Wildman's off suspension. Bluebloods, man, Jaleel McLaughlin is legit. T, I agree. Listen, and T, you'll respect it. So people got mad at me that I had Jaleel McLaughlin as an All-American. I'm like, he is a top 4 running back in the FCS easily. I don't understand how you could argue differently, but they're all on the Isaiah Davis hype train, which is fair. But I think Jaleel McLaughlin is just as good as any running back in the country right now. The SID is the sports information director. It's usually the person or the director of athletics or whatever is the person that handles all the credential requests, media requests, regardless of what it is. So anytime I say SID, I'm talking about the sports information director or whoever handles the sports media for each team. Let's see. NDSU didn't blow out Youngstown. It was penalties late lining up. It was just bad QB play too, T. If Youngstown had a good quarterback, that game could have been way closer. Teams that don't have to play JSU or FAMU, so a team in the West who has the weak schedule. Oh, man. Anyone who has PV on their schedule and not JSU. I like the way Coach Fenner still puts emphasis on high school. I love it too, man. In the age of the transfer portal, it's really refreshing that he's able to recruit high school the way he is. And if he can develop Miles into a draft pick, and they also had another borderline 4-star defensive tackle. I think it was Paul Hudson that came in. He's legit too, and he had a big game this weekend, and he looked really, really good at defensive tackle. So they got some guys that I think could make some waves at the FCS once they start developing. PV has the weakest SWAC schedule. Land had a sack and I think 2 tackles for loss. Paris. He had a solid day. Let's say JSU dominates Campbell. Campbell, what happens to JSU in your rankings? I think it just depends on what happens above them. And also, and I keep saying, because it's hard to predict what's going to happen in the rankings 4 weeks from now. Because if Campbell, let's just say Campbell loses their next 2 games, then I don't know how that really impact. Because I'm just going to be honest with you. It's going to be really hard to convince me Jackson State deserves to jump Delaware, Sac State, Montana State, South Dakota State, and North Dakota State. It is because they're all those teams are going to start playing these ranked conference opponents, and things are going to get real tricky. And the question becomes is a Delaware team that just beat Elon and Jackson State blows out Campbell. I'm still keeping Delaware, who just beat a ranked Elon, over Jackson State. So we'll see. It's going to be hard to predict rankings 4 weeks away. We'll see what the top teams do, and we're going to see what Campbell comes into Jackson State as. So I can't predict what's going to happen in the rankings that far away right now, to be honest, because upsets can happen. North Dakota State could drop 3 in a row by chance, and then we're having a whole different conversation. Or South Dakota State could have a starting quarterback get hurt. So I feel like that's a hard prediction to make. Yeah, he averaged 8.5 yards per carry. T. I don't know. That's just what the comment said. I don't know if that's a fact. Yeah, Youngstown's QB, they got to get a new one. I don't think so. I don't think you can leave one of the best conferences and go to the OVC, especially with the future of the OVC, because Murray State's jumping into the MVFC next year. Youngstown should not leave the MVFC. I talked about A&T a little bit earlier. I think they won a game they were supposed to. It was really good to start off in conference play. The question is, I just don't know. The quarterback position is my biggest question mark for A&T. I don't know what that's going to look like. And in the big games, when you play Campbell, when you play some of the top teams on your schedule, you're going to have better QB play. And if people load the box, is A&T going to be able to throw the ball efficiently? And that's going to be my question. Who would you like to see JSU play next year? Oh man, Rick, you're gonna get people heated at me because they're gonna be like, "Well, Blue's only saying this because of this." But if I had to, if I had to say a team, I think a reasonable opponent for them would be someone in the Southeast, someone that has, a chance to be ranked. I think a really good matchup for Jackson State next year would be a Southeastern Louisiana or an Incarnate Word, or I think even a Mercer. If you go up there and play Mercer right outside of Atlanta, right, and you get a home and home going between them, it would be great. Sanford's right there in Alabama. You can play. That's a ranked team. UT Martin. I think any of those type of games would be good. There's too many good teams in the Southeast footprint that Jackson State can play. So I think I would say Southeastern, Incarnate Word, Sanford, Mercer would be some teams on that list that I would like to see them potentially schedule a home and home with, or just get a game in. JSU will probably get no higher than 7. I thought he played. I thought he played decent. I think if he had, let me look it up. He had 4 catches for 83 yards, had a big 30-yard reception. I don't think he's playing at an All-American level, but he's playing decent. I still need more from him, especially being a first-team All-American, but he's also limited a little bit by his quarterback play. So I think Everett did enough this weekend where I'm not gonna be too down on him. JSU versus UTC is a fun matchup. I agree with that. JSU versus Kennesaw. Folks got mad at me on last night when I said Mr. Campbell's catching all the flag. I think that's a fair criticism. JSU versus Mercer, Incarnate Word. East Tennessee. JSU schedule is all set for 2023. SWAC MEAC Challenge, Texas State, SU, unless we move to pod scheduling. Yeah, because they're going to play South Carolina State in the MEAC SWAC Challenge, if I'm not mistaken. And I think Texas State is a winnable FBS game for them. I'd like to see Alcorn play Austin P, TSU, UT Martin. I don't mind that. Austin P is an interesting one too. I kind of forgot about them, but yeah, Austin P would be a solid one. when will you see a MEAC versus MEAC game start next week until season end? I'll have to look at the schedule, Russell. I'm going to try to make it to South Carolina State, North Carolina Central, in a conference matchup. That's probably the only MEAC versus MEAC one I'll be going to. How do you think Jack State would do with one more recruiting class with a team like Rutgers? I mean, I think you could probably compete with Rutgers right now. There's a lot of people forget. Okay, this isn't just a Jack State thing. Like if you're in the top 15, or really even the top 25 of FCS, there are multiple matchups with FBS schools that are winnable. And I think Jackson State, being 7, should be able to compete with some of these FBS teams. So I don't even think it's a one more recruiting class thing. It's just, man, if you're in the top of the FCS, you should be able to compete and if not win some of these games. When you look at what Weaver State did, when you look at what Delaware did, when you look at what Incarnate Word did, when you've seen what North Dakota State did outside of this year, when you look at how South Dakota State competed with Iowa, like there are teams that can really compete on a high level at the FBS level, and I think Jackson State's in that conversation. Kennesaw looks terrible this year, and that goes back to quarterback controversy, man. The fact that they benched Xavier is insane to me. I never saw that coming, but yeah, Kennesaw looks like they're getting exposed a little bit this year, to be honest with you. JSU should schedule Florida State, Miami. All right, Jesus Christ. No, only 3 conference spots we can schedule. The NCAA allows the FCS to go to 12 in 2024, Calvin. So the FCS teams can move to a 12 teams schedule, a 12 game schedule in 2024. South Carolina State can beat us this weekend. The schedule shows JSU versus TSU in Memphis in 2023. I just don't think they've changed it. I don't think that's the case. Let's see. Agreed. Rutgers is hot. Hot cheeks, and I've seen enough Rutgers. I know how horrible they are. Oh man, Sac State is serious. They do choke. That's the one thing with like Missouri State, with Sac State, with even Holy Cross. Like some of these teams that you see up top, they play so well in the regular season, and then they just choke it away in the playoffs. So that's the question mark: is can some of these teams compete when it really matters? Because it's different being a good team in September and October than being a good team in November and December when like everything's on the line and you're going for a championship. I don't know if Travis plays this week, Rick. I'm sure someone's going to ask tomorrow in the press conference with Prime, and I'm sure he will answer. But I would expect to see Travis one of these next 2 weeks if I had to guess just off the top of my head. But he's going to come back when he's ready. Yeah, 24 and 25. You can have that 12 game schedule. Let's see. I'm gonna try to catch up with some of these comments. There was a question that I missed. Do you think the Patriot League? I do think the Patriot League will have 2 bids. AO. I think Fordham has a good enough resume right now because Fordham has 2 CAA wins. They lost to an FBS school by 1 possession, and they got Tim DeMorat, who's going to create a lot of hype behind that bid. So I do think that Fordham can get in. I do think Holy Cross probably wins the league again. And, right now, I do think the Patriot League could potentially have 2 teams in the playoffs. Let's see. That's going to be the question, is what that schedule looks like moving forward. I'm really, really excited for games to start being announced. For everything, man. But I'm gonna wrap this up, man. Y'all get y'all's last few comments in, man. Let me go back through real quick in case you were just tuned into the show, man. Lindsey Scott, Sean Chambers, and Geno Hess were my 3 offensive player of the weeks. Jalen Thomas was an honorable mention from Sanford after 3 touchdowns on 5 carries. Zeke Vandenberg, Torrey Hargrove, and Nathan East were my 3 defensive player of the weeks. Montana State, big win over UC Davis. Sam Houston State squeaking out a close one in the Battle of Piney Woods over Stephen F. Austin. Chattanooga storming the comeback against ETSU. Holy Cross beating Harvard, getting revenge from last season. NDSU getting a big win over Youngstown. North Dakota pulling off a giant upset over top 10 Missouri State. Sanford proving that they're legit against Furman in a big win. UCA pulling off a top 25 upset over Austin P. Sacred Heart beating Norfolk State, PV putting one on Grambling, man. No G this week for Grambling. FAMU 34-7 over Valley. Yale beating Howard. No surprise there. Campbell putting a beat down on Central, man. I had a blast. Make sure to check out the highlights and the press conference after the show. 48-18, and Elon winning a big overtime game over Richmond. Here's the top 25. I'm going to have the article with all the analysis and everything that even more than I gave tonight on my top 25 and what's coming next. Already submitted my ballot, so nothing's going to change on that. Also, photo gallery for Campbell versus NCCU drops on our website, man. Make sure to check that out. Been putting in a lot of work at these games, trying to give you all the best content at the FCS level, man. I can, but listen, I will be back. Coach's Corner this week. We're going to have a special guest. I can't say who. He's from the Campbell coaching staff. I'll just say that he's going to help us recap the Campbell versus NCCU game. Then me and Coach Fred are going to preview some of the biggest games of week 6 coming up. Man, I can't believe the season's flying by like this. Also, the roundtable this week, FCS preview coming on Wednesday night. Also, stay tuned for press conference updates from across the FCS right here on the Bluebloods, man. But up until next time, y'all have a good one, man. But for right now, I am out.